I was about to say it.
Very official. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming, both in the virtual world and at this room 302. And I'm Michelle Cruz, chairing this Persons with Disabilities Committee. I represent District 4. And I almost feel like doing an icebreaker. Let's go around and just do a quick intro. I'm on the executive board of the California Alliance for Retired Americans and AFSCME retirees. And so we work a lot with seniors and who often have disabilities or limitations.
I'll go next. I'm Kate Turpin, and I've been on the committee since 2019, appointed by Supervisor Anderson, representing District 2. I represent the substance abuse and mental health community. I have 8 years of recovery. And I also represent those with intellectual disabilities. I'm one of the managers at Home of Guiding Hands, which is a big organization in East County that provides services to individuals with developmental delays.
Do you want to go, Jaime?
Oh, I'm Jaime Monreal. I'm with the County of San Diego Benefits Division, and I'm just here helping the board administratively, taking minutes.
Elaine?
Elaine Pitt. I am also with the Department of Human Resources with the Benefits Division and filling in while Katie is out enjoying her maternity leave.
And
I'm Jeanette Shelton. I'm representing Terra Lesson Ringer District 3. And my background was with University of California, working with employees, academics, and staff with disabilities.
Jose.
Yeah, so I'm Jose Gaspar. I'm representing District 1, appointed by Nora Vargas. I'm also acting president for the Vermont Foundation. And yeah, that's me.
I will just do personal privilege. I always forget to say I'm blind, and that's the reason I got involved with this community. And also just, I always want access in whatever situation. So that's us for the moment. And we are, what time is it?
2:10.
Jessica did just text me. She has a service animal with her and she's making her way through security and she's on her way upstairs.
Are they giving her a hug?
I don't think so.
Okay. We will have our illustrious Jessica Kramer shortly, and I'll let her do the intro.
And is Carolyn on the phone? Should we
Oh my
have her do
God.
an introduction?
Carolyn, can you hear us? Can someone
I think
send
she
her
may.
an unmute button? Those are so helpful. I love them.
It doesn't show that she's muted. She's not muted.
I think she may be making her way here and can't, maybe she's going through security or something and she can't.
Okay.
Because she was on her way, she just called in.
Yeah, and she spoke just a minute ago. So she,
Carolyn, can you hear us?
Oh, it looks like she's still.
it looks
Yeah,
like she
I think
dropped
she's-
off. So
Okay.
maybe
On her way.
she's,
That's okay. We'll just wait for her to show up in person.
okay.
I was gonna have Natalia maybe speak for a few minutes because our district attorney is technically not scheduled until, oh, are we supposed to go over the minutes?
We could go over the minutes from last week.
Well, next on the agenda is
Is
non-agenda
non-agenda comment.
public comment period.
Okay, is there anybody that would like to make any comments on the agenda or not on the agenda, because that's when the public can talk?
Nope. Nobody's- no
Comments.
hands raised.
Okay. So next on the agenda is the minutes.
Committee composition.
I'm gonna go to minutes. It's faster.
Meeting minutes is item 6. And I've had time to review the minutes and they look good to me, so I'll make a motion for approval.
I second.
Is there any opposition to approving the minutes from last month?
I just want to make a comment really quick. After we had gone through all the minutes, we made a minor change to it, so I just wanted to bring it up.
Thank you.
Because when we were talking about the Brown Act, and Michelle, when you and I were talking and I was reading it to you, and I had made that change to put in meeting at a coffee shop. So Todd and I had been talking, and because the meeting minutes are sort of a reflection of the video, what was captured, your comment about the coffee shop came in after we were talking with Randall with County Council. So the way I had it worded, I changed the sentence slightly.
Okay.
So I put, and I can read it to you, only because, again, it's slightly different than what you and I talked about. So
Elaine was kind enough to read me the minutes. So I could vote.
yeah.
Was that, Elaine, the correction in that we could attend in person at a county facility, but not a coffee shop?
That's not accurate.
What, I'm just asking for clarification. Which comment was that that got
Yeah, it still says coffee shop. I just changed
Okay.
it to Michelle noted that you can meet at a coffee shop,
Oh, got
is
it.
how I
Okay.
worded it.
That's perfect.
Okay, so that was the only change I made, Michelle, after you and I talked.
That's perfect.
One other, it says at the bottom, the next meeting is April 26th. That's changed obviously after our meeting. Is that something that needs to be
Yeah, I don't,
adjusted or? It
that's
didn't
actually a
happen
question I have, because that was, it did reflect what we did in
in the meeting
the
and then that
meeting,
changed
yes.
later.
But then we changed later because we weren't
So-
gonna be able to have the district attorney there.
Yeah, so I think at the end of this meeting, we can just reflect that the meeting is coming up on May, when is the next meeting? May 12th?
I think it's May
No, it's
24th.
Fourth,
That's my
Wednesday of
son's
May.
birthday.
Okay, yeah, I think that the minutes are still accurate though, because that is what we had agreed to.
At that time,
At that
and then
time,
later.
yes.
Right, okay.
Yes, exactly.
What I could reflect at the end of this meeting is that we did change the time within the committee because of the fact that we were not gonna be able to have the district attorney attend. And then in May, several of our committee members will not be able to be here.
Yeah, so otherwise the minutes are exactly as we had gone over.
Okay. Any opposition? Any opposition? There's no opposition, and we will pass those minutes by acclamation.
I know what side I'm on.
Yeah, you have to sit on this side. Carolyn just walked in, Michelle.
Oh, hey Carolyn,
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, Carolyn.
when you sit, we did go through quick introductions.
And Jessica will be coming in with her dog, so she should
Oh,
take the
perfect.
end seat.
That would be great, it didn't work.
Obviously, we didn't silence it.
So quick intro. Hello, everybody. My name is Carolyn Smith. I am the 2014 Veteran of the Year for the 71st District here in San Diego. I am a 100% combat wounded veteran, was injured in a roadside bombing. And I am also a children's book author. And I'm 3 months away from becoming Dr. Smith.
Congratulations.
That's exciting.
That's a really big
I'm so exhausted.
making sure it's not, it's nobody that, from the committee, that they were having trouble or anything. Okay, so, Natalia, do you wanna like just start with your intro about the housing?
Would you like me to start? Depending on how long we could always come back. Okay, sure. If you just let me know.
And then when summer comes, we'll switch. You need a microphone, you have a very soft voice.
Yes.
Thank you, Michelle. Usually I don't get that. I grew up with 3 older brothers. I tend to be quite loud.
I do have a presentation up on the screen, but we'll be reading through it as well. Thank you all. My name is Natalia Henschel. I'm here representing actually a number of different departments within the county that are all working to curb the affordable housing crisis in the county of San Diego. The county is committed to responding to this affordable housing crisis, and in this effort, creating a roadmap to help guide this ongoing response. In today's presentation, in the next slide, I'll provide information about why we need the housing blueprint, how you can provide feedback on the goals and objectives that are included in the current draft blueprint, give you an overview of what those draft goals and objectives are, and answer some questions and gather your feedback. While much of the county's work in the housing sphere is not new, we are just in the initial phase of developing this blueprint. And as subject matter experts, your input is really important.
The County of San Diego is committed to curbing the housing affordability crisis, and we need your input to develop a blueprint for solutions. For decades, home building has not kept pace with our growing population and demand for housing at nearly all income levels. This has caused housing costs to skyrocket in the county. Close to 20% of San Diegans are spending over 50% of their income on housing, contributing to rising levels of displacements, overcrowding, and homelessness, especially for vulnerable populations like seniors. The county is committed to solutions. Since 2019, the Board of Supervisors has established multiple initiatives to stimulate housing production and improve access to homes for the most vulnerable. From new land use policies for the unincorporated county to new housing development and resource programs throughout the region, the county is dedicating resources and leveraging funding to get people housed, and to ensure that new housing is created in places where residents can thrive and impacts to the environment are reduced. While many of the board's directives have been completed, others are in progress and subject to changes in policy, priorities, and regulatory requirements. Moving forward, we need a guiding tool to help maximize resources, balance priorities, and direct efforts. As a first step, the board approved an initial draft housing blueprint in December of 2022. The draft blueprint lays out the goals, objectives, and strategies to meet housing needs with a focus on our core values: integrity, belonging, excellence, access, sustainability, and equity. It reflects prior community input, specific regional priorities, direction from the Board of Supervisors, as well as state mandates. As we refine the blueprint, your feedback is important to ensure that any new factors in the changing housing landscape are considered. Thank you for being here. We look forward to hearing from you.
You'll want to double click it into the next slide, because there you go. So as the video said, and what's showing here on the screen is our different phases. So in phase one, that draft housing blueprint was presented to the board in December, and it included goals, objectives, and strategies that reflected regional priorities, direction from the board, state mandates, and community input that's received across all of the county's housing efforts. We are now in phase two, working to refine the blueprint's draft goals and objectives with feedback from the board and with the community. This summer, the refined goals and objectives will be presented to the board along with the community feedback that we're collecting during this process. And the final goals and objectives will then directly inform specific strategies that will be included in the blueprint. The overall final blueprint is going to be developed in the next phase, phase three, and the county is currently working on contracting a consultant to help finalize that blueprint in the next phase. Next slide. The latest version of the draft blueprint includes the board's feedback that was received back in December at the Let's Talk Housing workshop. So now it's made up of 5 overarching goals and 8 objectives. To help raise awareness and gather input on the blueprint, we've developed a project page on the Engage San Diego County website. This website is the county's online community engagement platform. And there you can find information about the blueprint. The video that was just shown is also there. We're also trying to make sure we have links and documents about other housing efforts that are happening in the county that you might be interested in. A short community survey that I believe was also sent out to you all, you all were informed that that was available, was there to collect information on the draft goals and objectives. And we're also going and doing these presentations and having discussions to gather feedback on the goals and objectives in this way. This isn't going to be the first or the last opportunity to have input on the blueprint. As we continue to refine it and go into the next phases, we'll identify new opportunities for community engagement and be sure to share those with you. So now I'm going to go over the 5 goals. These 5 goals are just on the screen, just in words though. The Blueprint's 5 goals are adopted from San Diego's regional planning agency, SANDAG, and its Housing Acceleration Program strategy, which was adopted in 2022. The strategy was established to prioritize planning activities that accelerate housing production. According to SANDAG, these housing policies that they also call their 5 Ps address the root causes of the housing blueprint. Next slide. The first goal is to produce housing for all. It refers to supporting and implementing policies to increase housing production of all kinds, and to locate housing in urbanized areas with access to transit, jobs, and amenities that enhance the quality of life for residents. The second goal is to promote equity, inclusion, and sustainability. It refers to implementing solutions that address the historic patterns of exclusionary housing practices, segregation, and other inequities, and ensuring that safe, healthy, accessible, and inclusive housing opportunities are available to everyone. It also refers to housing solutions that promote climate resilient communities, the preservation of open space, and the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled. The third goal is to preserve vulnerable housing. This refers to supporting proactive strategies to preserve affordable housing that exists today by tracking expiration dates of affordable housing deed restrictions, keeping tenants informed of their rights, and investing in the rehabilitation of housing to preserve affordability. The fourth is to prevent displacement. This goal seeks to implement policies that prevent vulnerable populations from the harmful outcomes of displacement that can be the result of improvements to neighborhood amenities such as transit or open areas or open spaces such as parks. Strategies should include studying existing and potential displacement pressures and monitoring the effectiveness of housing retention strategies in relation to planned transit improvements. The fifth and final goal is to protect tenants. Supporting tenants by providing information about their rights and creating protections to minimize economic evictions or unsustainable rent increases. So those are the 5 goals. Next, I'm going to turn to the draft objectives. And again, there is a total of 8 of them. And I'll tell you now, they can be pretty lengthy. So I will go over them slowly. As shared earlier, these were informed by regional priorities, direction from the board, state mandates, and community input. Starting with planning and facilitating the construction of 6,700 units by 2029 for the unincorporated county, with a sub-goal to finance and incentivize 2,800 of those as low and very low income units. You might ask yourself, where are these numbers coming from? These are mandated directly by the state through the Regional Housing Needs Assessment and allocated to the county by SANDAG. The second is to support the production of 10,000 affordable units regionally. So that means both in the incorporated and unincorporated area by 2030 on publicly owned property. So surplus land that is owned by cities or the county. And this is actually a reflection of the joint city and county San Diego housing resolution that was adopted last fall.
So the total number you said was 69,000?
So there's a state mandate that in the unincorporated county, we have to build 6,700, or we have to plan for
6,700.
and facilitate 6,700. But in addition to that, the city and the county came together in a resolution last fall, and that is to build 10,000 units within both the unincorporated county and the incorporated cities. So of those 10,000, some of the 6,700 might be captured.
So I think you and I have met before. I was served on the Lakeside Community Planning Board. And either you or sort of, one of your partners had come out and given this. Do you recall the feedback that you got from the unincorporated of putting that many units in unincorporated East County?
So I don't, I haven't worked on the housing unit. So in my capacity right now as community engagement manager for the county, I'm facilitating, gathering feedback on this housing blueprint because it's a reflection of the work that's happening across different departments. So I assume who came to you would be a representative or a staff member from Planning and Development Services talking about the RENA. We've definitely, that I'm privy to, is there is a lot of concern in the unincorporated county of this number of units impacting ultimately not necessarily just the quality of life or the way of life, but really the like what the communities look like and ultimately where you could even build it.
Right, because rural, the reason why we live in rural is to be rural and not have our neighbors, next to us. That's why people go and buy their parcels of land and all of those things. So my biggest recommendation to you is hopefully you guys go to the Lakeside Community Planning Board, to Poway, to all of those planning boards, those planning groups, and have a conversation with them about what the community is going to tell you about for egress, for fire. The more you add on these houses, we're still going to have wildfires. And our biggest issue, even without those 6,700, is how to get out of unincorporated when there is a fire, because the 67 corridor, while it has an upgrade to it, the upgrade isn't sufficient enough to get fire units in, people out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the add of that is going to be so catastrophic to the East County, to rural, and it's not my opinion, part and parcel, but sitting on these planning boards that are out in the rural area, that is the general consensus that we gave back to the lovely person that had come and done the presentation for us. So I really, really encourage you to go talk to the community planning boards, the planning groups in the rural county areas, because the other issue is that the county programs and city programs are not accessible to folks in Lakeside. We don't get any of those green programs or any of those things because Lakeside is excluded. Because I think the equity map or whatnot purposely excludes much of rural East County. The other issue in my perception is going to be that while trying to craft hubs of transportation, the folks that live out in rural East County, you're going to be spending billions and billions and billions of dollars to try and find a way to make transportation hubs. And then all you're going to do is push the rural people way back into the rural, because that's the whole point of rural. We have horses and cattle and all of those things. So I hope, while this is probably already going to be a go, I would hope you guys have the opportunity to speak to all the community planning groups that reside in East County.
Yeah, I mean, what I can definitely say about that is we did provide an invitation that if you would like a presentation in a community about the housing blueprint from one of the community planning groups, that they could reach out to us. So for example, we'll be going to Fallbrook and Bonsall, and others have participated in the survey that we have online and that I've seen as representatives of CPGs
as a disabled person, not everybody has that ability to know what we don't know, to go online, to click into something, to go and take this. So
Correct.
don't exclude, and I'm not saying you are, I'm just saying be cautious of excluding people, because rural East County may not spend a whole lot of time online and may not know, oh, I need to go over here, but they still would like to participate. So if they haven't reached out to you, I hope you reach out to them, because what they don't know, they don't know.
Okay, we will definitely recirculate that. For sure. Yes, thank you for that.
Good, how close to 2:30 are we?
It's 2:33.
Okay, Yoli, yell at me when she comes in.
We will, yeah. Yoli just stepped out of the room, but we're watching to see when summer arrives, so we'll let you know.
That's,
I'm
thank
back.
you, because I won't be able to see it, that's all. And then we'll stop at that point. But if you wanna
No,
continue.
yeah, no problem. No. So the third objective is create more affordable housing units each year. The fourth is that as directed by the board, implement sustainability criteria for affordable housing developments funded by the county or developed on county property. In the next four, we have, in the next slide too, identify and leverage alternative funding sources and cultivate partnerships. You'll see them in the next slide. They're frozen.
Yes, Summer's here.
Oh. We want to tell you this?
Yeah, I can transition.
No, please, I have time.
Okay.
I'm just fine waiting.
No, we need our time with you.
Okay.
That's
Whatever
our
you
priority.
wish.
love
No, it's- you are not really making.
We've been waiting since October to
Oh,
have this
I understand,
conversation.
I understand, no problem. I will be here.
So we will, thanks.
Whatever your wishes.
It's like the pre-band. Yeah, we should. If you have-
What district?
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Okay, but I want you to get a microphone, because you also have a low voice,
Yes,
and we're recording.
use that microphone
That
there.
one's fine.
Or if you wanted to have a seat at any of these with the microphones, it's
Yeah,
fine too.
then we can
Any
look
of
at
those.
those.
any of
Yes,
the
then we
seats
can
on
see you.
Is that the best option?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't you think?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. And it'll be more comfortable for you.
This is great.
So we can do a very quick introduction of the committee, so you know who you're talking to,
Yes.
and then we totally want to talk to you. I'm Michelle Krug, and I'm chairing this committee, and I'm representing District 4. And you know that I'm blind.
I'm Kate Turpin and I represent District 2, Supervisor Joel Anderson's district, and I work for Home of Guiding Hands.
My name is Carolyn Smith. I'm the 2014 Veteran of the Year for the 71st District in East County. I am a 100% combat wounded veteran, and I'm appointed by Joel Anderson. Great to meet you. Likewise.
Jen?
Hi, I'm Jessica Kramer. I am from District 5, appointed by Jim Desmond. I am filling a seat as a person with a disability, and I am a disability rights advocate in homelessness and 911 reform for seniors and people with disabilities.
And she has the cutest dog. Yeah.
My service dog
Stretched out.
Lucius is here.
It's really cute. Who's next?
Wonderful.
Although I'm Jeanette
We're
Shelton.
going this way, okay.
Jeanette Shelton, I'm representing Tiara District 3, and my background is in disability management at the University of California.
I'm Jose Gaspar, I'm with District 1. I'm also active president for a nonprofit organization that helps empower individuals with disabilities, the Edgar Millan Foundation, and I work with Sempra Energy as a cyber threat intelligence analyst.
Great to meet everybody. Thank you for this opportunity. So So thank you for having me. Sorry that it has taken a while to organize the calendar. You might have heard that we have a pretty massive backlog that we're working through at the DA's office and some other challenges, but I've been looking forward to this opportunity to be here. With me today from my team is Yulia Palategui, our Director of Community and Government Affairs, and also our Chief of our Bureau of Investigations, Jorge Duran, who was formerly a captain at the San Diego Police Department. And because of what I observed about him in terms of his respectful interactions with all communities, I had the pleasure of having him become our bureau chief at the district attorney's office. So as a little bit of background, and then I'll get right into, I think, what the area that you are most interested in and want to hear about. The DA's office, just to give you a little bit of jurisdiction, am I heard well by everyone? And okay, good. The DA's office is your people's prosecutor. We are a county-wide office, one of the few. Our jurisdiction is 18 cities and the 39 unincorporated areas of San Diego County. Every time that there is a felony crime, it will come from the 12 police agencies and sheriff to the district attorney's office for review for potential charges under a different standard than the police might arrest for. They go with a probable cause standard. The DA's office operates on a beyond a reasonable doubt standard. We also handle every misdemeanor case, that happens across San Diego County, except in the city of San Diego. So where sometimes it gets a little bit confusing is the difference of the jurisdiction of the city attorney versus the district attorney. You can think of it as the district attorney's office has jurisdiction over all state crimes, felonies, and misdemeanors, except for misdemeanors in the city of San Diego that are handled by the city attorney's office. To do this work, we have 7 offices across San Diego County because we believe in trying to serve the communities where they are to allow for further access at the different offices. So we have a central office in East County, North County, South Bay office, a Carney Villa office that handles juvenile crime, and then 2 community offices. One, so they don't handle regular prosecution. One is a crime prevention office and intervention in National City called the Care Center, and then one Family Justice Center in the North County called One Safe Place North that opened July 5th in San Marcos. One of our missions that we changed when I became the district attorney in 2018, before that I was a 28-year deputy DA and had pioneered the Sex Crimes and Human Trafficking Division, is we reformed our mission, and our mission is to pursue fair and equal justice for all, which definitely includes our community that has disabilities, and also to pursue that using the 4 Ps, which is the prevention of harm, the ethical prosecution, the protection of victims, and the partnerships with the community we serve. One of the things that getting into the access for justice issues that you are interested in, this body, we recognize pretty early on that one of the areas that we had not focused fully is in being really able to transmit the information to the communities we serve and provide more direct access to the DA's office. So one of the summits that we hosted to advance that was a summit that had about 500 people that discussed how do we advance victim services in a better way to all communities and all people, whether physical, intellectual, or developmental disabilities, whether they, whatever their background may be. And we received, input from the community about this. We also worked with our local ARC, San Diego ARC, and sent a team from our office to get some further training this about 4 years ago on how can we do better, how can we make the access to justice easier for our neurodiverse and all of our communities. And that was a really good opportunity. As time went on, we felt that we really needed not just our prosecutors, which having pioneered the Sex Crimes and Human Trafficking Division, we unfortunately had many victims that were taken advantage of, that were on the autism spectrum, in human trafficking, or had some other intellectual disabilities. We had victims of the deaf community, and we had to really learn how to address and serve them in a trauma-informed way. So we brought some specific trainings to our Sex Crimes and Human Trafficking Division, where we were encountering these victims in order to really serve them in a better way. But it became clear to me as DA that there are so many invisible disabilities in our community where everyone in our office needed more training, everyone from reception to prosecutors. I was focusing on our prosecutors and investigators, but it became clearer that really, because persons with disabilities may not identify themselves as such from the beginning, or we might not notice it, or we may not be informed enough to know, to be able to really bring up our level. We needed every member. We have 1,000 employees in the DA's office to serve all communities, the 18 cities and 39 unincorporated. So we asked our ARC National, that has a specific criminal justice section. They formed about 10 years ago, and their focus was this area, their expertise of enhancing access for victims and witnesses, families of victims that might have some disabilities, some barriers, how to bring down those barriers. And I made this training mandatory for all 1,000 employees. So far, about 850 employees have taken that training, but we track them, and so we're certain everybody will have that training. And the feedback was very positive. A lot of people have persons in their families, and that have these disabilities, whether invisible or visible, and they felt that even in terms of their personal lives, this was a positive training, but also in terms of our service to the community for justice, that this was and amazing. And the ARC National said that we're the first DA's office to take advantage of what they have to offer, but I serve as a role as vice president of the National District Attorneys Association. I plan on bringing this initiative nationally to give them our experience and what we learned. We have a long way to go. I think the learning can't stop. It's like maintaining your car. It doesn't happen one time. You have to continually up your knowledge. We know that we're not there yet. And my visit here really is intended for me to learn from you where there are areas too for improvement, or at least to begin the dialogue in that way. It's not to say that we have attained perfection in any way, but we are on this journey trying to advance the access to justice. We also in this area have invested in helping our police departments in better addressing individuals in the community that may have some disabilities, developmental, mental, or other, in making sure those interactions don't turn violent, that they're addressed in a respectful way. So I invested 1.5 million of my de-escalation, my funds, my asset forfeiture funds, into a regional de-escalation training for all police departments. We have about 5,000 police officers in our region. So far, 3,500 have gone through the de-escalation training. It meets post standards, but the focus is using some medical doctors, mental health professionals to simulate and help elevate the understanding of our law enforcement, including our own 120 police officers that work at the DA's office as investigators under Chief Duran, to elevate the ability to not always assume that somebody's not following commands is purposeful. But rather that it could be a sign of a hidden or visible or invisible disability, that they're not actually registering the command, that the loud noise that the command is given in might be blocking the sensory ability to receive the information. As we know, many people on the autism spectrum are sensitive to lights and sounds and other things. And this training, which is an 8-hour training, has been very well received it's a really good feedback on de-escalation for our community.
Is it a one-day class? Is it broken up?
It's a one-day class, yes. It's a one-day class and it's mobile. So what we did in order to be able to train that many officers with the shortage of officers and having to be out in the community is sometimes the training comes to a hub, a central hub, which is the probation department has a big training facility, or we actually go and mobily go to that police department and do the training. It's a regional post-certified training that focuses on de-escalation and crisis management, and especially with a focus on mental health issues and other disabilities. And then aside from that, in terms of access to justice, we've also required all of our team, all 1,000, to take a mandated training from Trans Family Services to understand gender identification, to appropriately address people with dignity and respect. And that was offered to us by Trans Family Services, and it's one of many areas of not specifically addressing disabilities, but addressing this access to justice concept. Of course, we have our designated ADA person, that's our HR chief, Jerry Milana. Of course, we comply with all of the posting, and we have our website has the ability for the icon to allow for easier ability to access. We also have within minutes the ability to bring in American Sign Language to all our people who visit us, who are witnesses, victims, or interact. We also have 192 language access through United Language Group that we've trained on, so everybody in our office can properly access the languages and access the American Sign Language, which is provided by the American Sign Language, and we have UserWay on our website to allow access to our website in a better way. And of course, we have all of the required postings in every floor to encourage access and to let people know that they can ask for translation or other services. I want to make sure that I kind of give you a lot of information. I want to make sure there's time for questions or I just wanted to give you an overview of this kind of journey that we're on and how we're approaching it so that we can provide dignified and open service and communication and access to justice for us. And, within our team, we of course also have, we are very, well, for me, it's very important that our promotions and everything take into account fairness for everyone. As an example, we have one amazing prosecutor who's wheelchair bound. He's got paraplegic and he's got disabilities that way. And he was in one unit where things were moving very fast. He's brilliant, but that work was not suitable for him. So we made sure that we worked with him, and he was put in one of our most complex units, serving seniors on senior fraud issues, and has been elevated to the highest level, has promoted, and has done incredible work as our lead senior fraud prosecutor, and has been able to go after those that are scamming our seniors. But it's an example of how you need to look behind the curtain, and we all need to learn that a disability in one area doesn't mean a disability in another area. It's a matter of opening the path to provide accommodation that allows everyone to thrive within our team.
What was his challenge?
He's in a wheelchair, he's paraplegic.
Oh.
Yes.
You actually left out something super important that you have worked very diligently on is your veterans court.
Yes.
And greatest thing that the city has done. It's helped, as a veteran myself, it's helped a lot of veterans that I know. So kudos on the veterans court.
Thank you so much. That
Let me let her finish, and also I want to introduce Rakita before we start. Okay. Just our special ed teacher, Rakita, you want to do a very quick intro and welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Yes, I'm Regina Boyd. I am a teacher in San Diego City Schools.
Yes.
Working on different projects. I apologize for being late. We are trying to get a program set up tomorrow for students who are experiencing learning loss. So I was out in the hall taking a call regarding that, but I am the at-large member for this committee. I'm happy to be here. Not only do I teach students with special needs, but I am also the wife of a paralyzed vet.
Well, so great to see you in this setting, as in school settings.
So I think Jessica is going to get that for the first question because she was the one who initiated this. And I just want to make very quick comments. One is someone not responding could also just be a language difference,
Yes.
just an awareness. And the other thing is, as someone who was a City of San Diego 30-year employee as a wastewater operator, sitting through those classes, I know I and many others found that if it was broken up, I took it in more because then I had time to think about it and then re-relate it when we continued the second part of it. So I'm just throwing that out there. Eight hours is like a lot to suddenly take in a new subject and somehow carry that with you. So it's just something to consider.
We'll
Jessica.
definitely take in that feedback. It is just, I think what helps a little bit is broken up into active portions and then like listening portions. So we get people out of their seat and they actually have to simulate So we have actors that simulate like an interaction, we have videos, and then they're supposed to react to them. So, but I think Chief is here and is taking note of that, what your suggestion was.
Well, just because then you can think about it a month
Yeah.
later or 3 months later, whenever you're taking the second part, like it starts to be a part of you rather than just, okay, it's a 1-day class.
Absolutely, makes a lot of sense.
Jessica, will you talk about the service animal situation?
Hi,
Hi, hello, Jessica.
it's a pleasure to finally meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I've been utilizing a service dog for disabilities related to seizure, brain injury, post-traumatic stress disorder, and all of the panic that can arise around emergency services and hospital services. When I started with my service dog, it was really not a well-known topic of conversation at all. And it was challenging beyond description. As the years have gone on and there's been more emphasis and awareness and more case law, the situation has improved, but not as much as I need it to improve in order to have a good quality of life. My everyday is met with confrontation, and because of my unique disability with having trauma around my medical condition, I don't always have the best reaction, and that's more due to my disability than my personality. And it took me a long time to understand that, about 12 years of trauma therapy, to understand that I'm not a bad person and I don't have terrible responses, but in fact, I am really being treated poorly in my day-to-day life because for whatever reason, people have different suggestions from you don't look disabled to you have a pickle looking service dog and all sorts of things that we all know are not relevant to whether a person does or doesn't have a disability, but as human beings, we just have our human nature, and I recognize in myself just sometimes a tendency to judge. As I've gotten more advanced in understanding my own disability, my own need for accommodations and how to express those accommodations, it's been easier for me to see the failures in the services that I'm trying to access. And as I assert my knowledge, I always try to be very professional, but oftentimes the more I know, the more conflict can arise. And this has been very true for me in 911 response with law enforcement, paramedics, and hospitals. And I had a situation while I was experiencing homelessness, which is also entirely related to my disability. I had a hotel voucher to stay in a hotel, and the case manager did not let the hotel know that I had a service dog. And I was essentially sent to the hotel without a case manager present after hours of the case management. And when I arrived and the manager saw that I had a service animal, he became very abusive and told me to go F off in the bushes and different things because the nature of my voucher revealed my homeless status. And I actually called the police department because I believe a crime had been committed against me. And the law enforcement agency did not believe it to be a crime. They believed it to be a civil matter. They did not know how to qualify the crime because they weren't familiar with it. And they did make an effort to file the report, but it was not adequate for prosecution. And when I got a call from the district attorney's office, I was told that they weren't going to prosecute the case because they didn't know how. And in her questioning to me, it was clear to me that she didn't understand the qualifications herself. So she hadn't really taken the time to understand the qualifications before calling me. And I did move it through chain of command. I had some lovely conversations with Brooke DeFreshy. Also a woman named Carrie who used to be in the stalking unit, because I'm also a victim of stalking, and really just tried to use my experience to be able to experience justice. One of the most devastating parts of my disability that I still find very traumatic is not experiencing justice. And it hurts. So I would very much like to see the district attorney's office, as you have with so many other issues that are meaningful to me, make a commitment to awareness and training and understanding of how law enforcement through prosecution can really understand the penal codes related to people with disabilities, not just the service dog penal code, which is an important one. There's also an interfering with the service dog penal code that I think is very significant. And there's also PC 368. And I have a really good safety team that's made up of medical and trauma therapy, and I have full-time in-home support services and good emergency contacts now. But that's very new for me. I've been managing this illness since about 2004, and more than a decade of that was mostly alone, because the expressions of my disability were very hard for other people. And I have been a victim of all sorts of disability abuse, including sexual abuse. And law enforcement has not known how to qualify me as a dependent adult. There's really not a clear list of qualifications. When it comes to elder and dependent adult abuse, we've made so many strides with elder abuse, but have unintentionally further marginalized dependent adults, especially those like me who have invisible disabilities. And so when being responded to by law enforcement, there's been a real challenge, because in their policies and their manuals, and I've read almost all of them, I've really spent the time to understand the entire process from the time that 911 call is made all the way through to the courts. There really is no qualifying checklist for a dependent adult. And there's still a great misunderstanding, even though your office has put forth an effort to make sure that the definition for dependent adult, which for everyone here, the definition of a dependent adult is a person between the ages of 18 and 64 who, regardless of living independently, has a physical or mental limitation that results in an inability to carry out normal functions or advocate for yourself. And the really important words there are regardless of living independently, and the legislature has addressed that with Senate Bill 338. However, our law enforcement agencies have not caught up to 338. Most of our law enforcement agencies do not have a policy that's in alignment with the post-elder independent adult abuse 2021 best standards policy, which your office did advise on. And so I know you're committed to this. And then also the San Diego Elder Independent Adult Blueprint was also, I believe, led by your office. And I realize that I'm kind of jumping around, so I want to stick to the criteria for dependent adult first, which is if I say to a law enforcement agent that I'm protected under PC 368, they don't have any way other than the regional center to identify if that's true. So what often come back is, are you registered with the regional center? Hey. Oops, yeah. He may also react to my cry, but I think he'll be okay. I'll be okay. Oops. Oops. Thanks for your patience. So what, I'm not a part of the regional center. The regional center is for people who have been diagnosed before the age of 18 with a developmental disability, essentially, and there is no regional center for every other person. And if law enforcement only knows how to check with the regional center for registry and they're not qualifying everyone else, then that's a real disadvantage to them, to your office, and to the disability community. So I would like to see a specific checklist. When I ask for a restraining order in the court system, I get a dependent adult restraining order. And that's qualified by my having Social Security disability, full-time in-home services, a handicap placard, various things that I can present to a judge, and the judge then responds with a dependent adult restraining order. But in law enforcement, they have no checklist or criteria or way that they can actually identify. And in their training, they are trained to never underestimate a person with a disability, to consider all safety concerns and weapon concerns the same. And they often say that people lie to them all the time, and therefore they can't take you at your word. And so we really have to have something that they can utilize from the training level that allows this dependent adult criteria to be understood. And then one other thing that I was branching off on, the Elder Independent Adult Blueprint. That was the first document that I ever found that helped me understand that I was a dependent adult and that I had the right to special protection and special consideration under the law, when my experience had been not having enough consideration and not having law enforcement understand me when I asked for a reasonable accommodation. The first time I ever went to a law enforcement agency with my caregiver and asked if I could explain to them my disability so officers could respond to me better, because I was at that time being stalked and assaulted by somebody. And I was homeless and very, very ill, and I could not defend myself. And I went to the front desk and I picked up the phone to the office because they were having a training that day, so the front door was locked. And I explained that I wanted to ask for a way to explain to the department some of my disabilities so that their officers could understand my response, because I was in danger and I was feeling afraid to call 911 after some scary responses with them not understanding my disability. And the PERT team was called out on me, and the call was a mental health crisis of an adult female outside the station. And that really, I think, says more than probably anything else I could say moving forward. Is just, there's such a lack of policy and procedure at the law enforcement level for ADA reasonable modifications. And I would say that that follows through to the courts, in that I was surprised when I needed an ADA accommodation to face this person that was hurting me in a restraining order court. That judge went through an ADA coordinator that's very difficult to get in touch with. Their number is not listed anywhere. It's hard, there's no clear way to ask for them when you enter the courthouse. And then when you do make your ADA reasonable modification request, it's my understanding that it goes to the judge to make the determination. And I also question whether that's the best person to be assessing the value or the reasonableness of a disability accommodation. And the very last thing is in that the Elder Independent Adult Abuse Blueprint. I really wanted to make a photocopy for everyone, but I just wasn't able to do it. There are, the front of the blueprint has a picture of 8 squares, or 9, 3, 3, and 3 squares. And each of those pictures is a person that is meant to look like somebody that would be an elder or dependent adult. And all 9 of those squares are elderly people. There's good racial diversity, I give credit to that. But if a law enforcement agency or a justice system official was to try to understand me as a dependent adult, and they only had those pictures to look at, they would never understand. And so I feel like those pictures really perpetuate discrimination against me and other dependent adults who perhaps have invisible disabilities. And I would really like to ask that one of those or a few of those pictures represent the dependent adult and invisible illness community, and also maybe a service dog. Thank you.
So I want to give you time to respond to that, and I want to add one more thing that Jessica shared with us was that when she specifically spoke to your office and asked about prosecuting that situation, essentially she was told, we don't know how, and that was the end of the story. So it never was escalated to you, or, well, you weren't in the position at that time, I don't think. But, you know, whoever, to actually figure out how, like there wasn't that part, that was not a part of your culture, is what it sounded like. To actually figure out, okay, we haven't done a service animal before, but maybe we need to figure out why and how. That's all.
So my only ad is almost what her ad is a little bit. I was a police officer in the military, so I appreciate that you're here, Chief. When you were talking about autism and the sensory and whatnot, I want you to consider to add the veteran space. I am 100% combat wounded. I was wounded in a roadside bombing incident. I was the machine gunner at the top of the Humvee. And so I don't look 100% disabled. But 9 times out of 10, if there's no parking spots downtown and I begrudgingly park in disabled parking and put my placard up, I get more grief from SDPD. And they're like, you don't look disabled. I'm like, I don't know what that means. So I don't know if you worked with the veteran space inside of your training. If you don't, I would love to participate and help you with that. I'd also recommend collaborating with the San Diego Military and Veterans Advisory Council, which is also an advisory council to the Board of Supervisors, and they are a wealth of information that your and even Chief can collaborate with on the veteran side for disabilities. Because again, we have sensory disabilities as well. We're just not on the autism spectrum. We're, you know, roadside bombs and car bombs and all of those other things. So just add that in when you're talking about sensory.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have the floor, Summer.
So I can't thank you enough, Jessica, for sharing that with me. I know from 33 years of working with victims that it's really hard to talk about some things and even acknowledge being victimized by stalking and sexual assault and a whole bunch of things. And I'm very, very sorry that this has been part of your life story, but I'm also so proud that you have taken on the advocacy of learning everything and learning our blueprints. And I'm glad you like the blueprint, you don't like the images. That's easy to fix. We will change the images to have them be more inclusive. I think that's a phenomenal point, and we'll definitely do that. I took a lot of notes of what you said and what I will commit to you to do, even though, as DA, I can't force the different police departments and to do certain training, but I have influence, just like I did with the de-escalation training, to encourage that kind of training, which I think your suggestions about having a specific enhanced training with regard to dependent adults, and also some form of guide, whether it's a checklist, something for the first time patrol officer who doesn't have the experience to have something to reference back to. This is something we've done very successfully in the area of strangulation, that a lot of law enforcement didn't understand that that's the #1 indicator that could turn into homicide. So we changed and have a checklist now, which has reduced our domestic violence homicides in San Diego County by 15%, which is an absolute statistical wonder. I will commit to you to attempt to do my best to work with all my law enforcement agencies on enhancing the training, not just for my office, which we just completed, but also further enhancing it within my office, but enhancing it with law enforcement that responds to 911 and to emergencies. So I'll do my best. Again, because this is agencies I don't control but influence. I can't make that promise other than to do my best, and hopefully I'll be able to report in a year and come back and report good news in that regard. I also, I told you we'll change the pictures that I do control, so we will do that.
Can you add a veteran on there? It don't have to be me, I'm just saying.
No, I'm, wherever I can fulfill
They have a
wishes,
veteran.
believe me, I
They don't
want
have
to.
one on there
But how do you know they're not a veteran?
because they don't,
You don't have the haircut, Michelle.
you see this long hair, come on down.
So we will look at that, we'll look at also enhancing and including some of the veteran disabilities, in our dependent or other accommodation programming. I also think though that you brought up a really good point, Jessica. Some of these laws regarding service animals are really new, like 365, 365.5. These are new sections. I'm aware of them because I'm a law buff, I'm the VA, so I have to let you know about all these things.
How new are they? Because that happened to her years ago.
No, it was in 2020.
All right, that's,
For laws, that's pretty new, that's
Okay.
new. So we haven't done a specific training about these laws where very thankful for the law because that's how you protect people. The rule of law is that you can't be turned down for having a service animal and, but we can work with this body to potentially do an educational poster for all our, for example, hotels and motels. We do that with human trafficking. We give them a checklist, right? We give them things to look for because human trafficking happens most often at hotels and motels. We can do the same with service animals, persons with disabilities. We can give them, we can work together because I want to make sure you all think it's good based on your expertise, but we can work together on some kind of flyer like we do for teachers on mandated reporting. We give you that little card for all the teachers. We can do a card like that for hotels and motels and different tourism or different restaurant associations. So we educate because, prosecution beyond a reasonable doubt is not always the answer, nor is it always something we should pursue because sometimes people make stupid mistakes because they don't understand, they don't have the knowledge. We do prosecute when appropriate, obviously. We do.
but your office wouldn't even touch it, and the guy was clearly abusive.
Well, we did not touch it. It was analyzed up one side, down the other. So because I didn't come here unprepared, so it's not to say that Jessica didn't have a legitimate case, but what the law says, words and being terrible, that's something that is horrible. We don't agree with it, but you need an actual crime. That's what we prosecute. We don't do civil, we don't do, those things like your complaint, and maybe you did this already, would have been perfect for the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, because what they handle is the civil administrative side of And, maybe you could have a speaker here from that agency because we work with them, we work on the crimes and they work on the civil side of discrimination. We work on discrimination when it amounts to a hate crime or it amounts to a crime per the penal code.
Yeah, I'm glad
Beyond
you
the
brought up the hate crime because I did spend some time looking into whether or not the way I was treated at the hotel should have been checked off by the reporting officer as a potential hate crime. They have a box on the
Yes,
police form, and I felt like this is an important conversation, PC 365, PC 368, which is elder and dependent adult abuse, or essentially elder and abuse of adults with disabilities. Dependent adult, I think, is weaning its way out of the legislator because it has odd connotations and doesn't provide an adequate representation of the population it's meant to. But when there is a PC 368 crime or a PC 365.5 crime that involves an abusive element related to the perception of disability, I also don't think that law enforcement has much advisement as they need to understand how disability hate crimes play in. And I know that when we met with the sheriffs, somebody specifically asked them how many disability hate crime reports they had filed, and I believe they said 0.
Yeah, that is what he said.
And when I read the history and the legislative intent of documents like the Elder Independent Adult Abuse Senior and Disability Justice Act, it says that people with disabilities are, if not the most, one of the highest demographic for being a victim of a crime. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. But yet underrepresented, and this is known from the DOJ down, underrepresented in the justice system. And so I would also really like to see some more advisement and some more best practices and solution innovation conversations around when a PC 368 or a 365.5 rises to hate crime statutes. Because the way I read hate crime, it doesn't seem as strict of a criteria as I feel law enforcement acts on it to be in the moment.
no, I think definitely you're right, because hate crimes are committing a crime with bias towards a disability, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, or religion. So it is one of those protected classes. So it definitely can go along with the enhanced training to include an element of hate crimes in there. Absolutely.
Thank you.
A quick note,
Yes.
well, first and foremost, thank you for your work, raising awareness and including people with disabilities in any type of process is greatly welcomed. Personally welcome it, so thank you. I know before you mentioned that a lot of the training focuses on people with mental disabilities. My question was, any training provided for law enforcement when it comes to persons with disabilities? As others have mentioned, it's not always clear when someone has a disability, right? Even physical. In my case, I would think that many people would maybe see me and think maybe there aren't a whole lot of underlying disabilities other than maybe a wheelchair where I can't walk or whatever it may be. In my case, it's a neuromuscular condition that limits my strength. But I know that for many people using a wheelchair, typically resulting from being sedentary, for example, bones are very brittle. Dexterity and range of motion are extremely limited. I know personally, if I was, say, tackled or handled roughly from a police officer, anything like that, it would be immediate visit to the ER for sure. Just going on the ground, that's probably life-threatening, to say the least. So as far as training goes, that was really my concern, addressing specifically persons in wheelchairs. What lengths do they go to prevent injuries?
I appreciate that comment. I don't think that's included in the de-escalation training with law enforcement, but I've taken notes and we're always revising it. So I think that's an excellent feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't want to be a total dominator, but I mean, I recognize that I just am in a position to say a lot because I've been studying it for so long and have so much personal and advocacy experience. When you were talking about the awareness component, I just want to say that I understand the value of that. A lot of the best practices that I learned came from the city of San Francisco because they had dealt with a lot of service dog issues some time ago, and they actually have an ADA coordinator in their police department. And so they also have a mayor's office on disability. So the mayor's office on disability coordinated with, I believe, the Ethics or Human Rights Commission, and then also with the San Diego Police Department. And they did an awareness campaign and they said it reduced calls tremendously. And so I do see what you mean about the answer not being necessarily
I think we should let her go.
No, I pretty much do whatever Michelle asks, so I learned that early on in my career.
Thank goodness for Yoli.
I was talking about that on the way up here. I said only Michelle would call a special meeting on a Friday afternoon. You get away with that.
Are there any, I guess and only as a quick answer, I'm unclear about why the situation with just this attitude of the hotel proprietor not allowing her to sleep there, that when that was her right, you know, with the voucher, that kind of thing. How is that not criminal when, like, what, not a lawyer, obviously. But what is where is that line that you were suggesting that it might be civil as opposed to the criminal? What would have made it criminal?
I can't discuss a specific case publicly, but what I can say is that there's in criminal law to kind of hold somebody as a criminal, you want to show some willfulness. It's not just that you didn't do an act, but you had a willfulness, like you knew that you're not obeying the law. And So just generally speaking, that is the element that's different for criminal than civil. It's not just simply you don't do something, it's more like your intent, your willfulness in doing it. So just generally speaking, because this is a newer law, it's potentially very real that a lot of people working as clerks in hotels don't know about it, don't know that they're supposed to let someone with disabilities in with their service dog. This is why I'm suggesting that we actually educate them about the law so that we can successfully prosecute them, because we've now given them that willfulness. They now know what is wrong, and now they're acting against the law. So that's the approach.
I think one of the most successful campaigns I've seen is Las Vegas, believe it or not, in their bathrooms for human trafficking. Part and parcel of my PhD that I'm graduating with in a couple of months is about anti-terrorism and human trafficking and all of those things. So I've always been an advocate for you, but that has been one of the most successful campaigns because everybody goes to the bathrooms, right? And even that victim that gets to go to the bathroom, like they have an opportunity to, hold little tabs and put it in their pocket and all those things. So I've been all over the world, and I still think Vegas has the best campaign for human trafficking, which can mirror what Jessica is talking about for educating people, not just necessarily on service animals, ADA and stuff, but invisible disability mirrored off.
What else is on our agenda, and then we'll.
We have our county housing blueprint that we're supposed to
That is
finish,
just agenda. That's what you do.
but I thought that was
Tanya, can you
10-minute
copy the,
presentation. Maybe she should be a
agenda
guest
into
speaker at
the
at our
chat
next meeting.
again?
We could do
It
that,
got
but I
erased
just
for some
think
reason.
she waited till the end, because that was when she was scheduled.
Okay.
What else is on our agenda? Anything
We are
have to do?
pulling it up right now.
Committee composition, strategic initiative, public safety.
That
Oh,
was-
she just did that. County housing blueprint and in progress topics, virtual access to public meetings, committee meeting date and time.
Okay,
And adjournment,
so just,
just to become
So-
late.
yes. So, Natalia, what is your, I know that specifically Todd wanted to make sure that we knew how we could weigh in, because this is.
Sure. Absolutely. So in the presentation, there was only 2 more slides. It was just showing the last 4 of the 8 objectives. And so I just want to make sure you're clear on timeline. Right now, we're trying to collect the feedback on the draft goals and objectives, only that part of the blueprint. And that is scheduled to go back to the board in the summer. Right now, some of the board meetings are kind of in flux, and so we don't have a set date. So you can access the presentation that I'm giving today, as well as the copy of the draft housing blueprint on the Blueprint website. And you're more than welcome to send me an email with any feedback. If you'd like to have a conversation, we can have a conversation. If you would all like to discuss it at a future meeting and submit a letter together as a representative of your whole committee, you're more than welcome to do that. We just ask that we can probably receive it no later than the first week of May, so that we can make sure it's
The first
included.
week of May is like in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I
We won't even have another meeting.
Yeah, so
So
ultimately.
how do we get a hold of you via email?
So,
And phone, don't ever forget that not everybody has.
okay, I do not have the phone listed on the end of the presentation, but the presentation is gonna be shared with you all after this meeting, correct? Is that correct?
Yep, you can get the presentation. out.
And my email is on the last slide.
Okay.
On there. Also, if you go to, and to the extent that it's available to you, engage.sandiegocounty.gov. That is our engagement online platform. And I know that online is not helpful for everybody, but we're just trying to make sure we're here in person, as well as providing an opportunity for everybody to access that at their own time and pace. There's a number of different projects on there, including the housing blueprint. Just click on the housing blueprint. Everything that I'd be able to present to you today is on there. Frequently asked questions, links, documents, the video that I showed, the presentation. We did have a community meeting on April 5th that was recorded in both English and Spanish. You can see the full recording of that meeting as well. And you can also ask questions and provide, there's contact information there on the website, and get an answer that way too.
You only had one community meeting?
Well, we had one standalone community meeting, but what we wanted to do was not make you have to go to 2 meetings. So I came to you today, so you didn't have to come to the 5th.
So how many people, how many people were at that meeting? How many community members were at that meeting?
We had about 46 at that community meeting, but this
Does
is,
that, and forgive me, but does that not tell you that the word isn't out strong enough yet for the real community input to be authentic?
I mean, that is one moment in time. To me, a public meeting is not necessarily the most accessible thing for everybody to have to log on to something at 6 o'clock. We've had over 300 people submit their responses on our survey online, questions, and this is about the 17th presentation that I've given, going out to specific stakeholder groups and communities and committees and commissions and boards. The strategy here was really to go to people where they're already gathering, getting on their agenda, versus putting another meeting on their calendar, which we are often, as a community engagement manager for the county, I'm getting a lot of input from people saying, we're overtaxed. You're asking us to go to too many meetings. We're already gathering for this purpose. We're already representing this stakeholder group. Come to us. hence the presentation today here for you all. And also just accessibility, again, online, or I will provide Todd in the group here a phone number for you all to be
I
able
would
to
ask
call
you
as well.
always to have a phone number.
Okay,
That's ridiculous that the slides don't have a phone number.
okay, absolutely. I take that back. I'm taking that on and putting that phone number in every presentation that I see. I'll make sure to be adding that 10-digit phone number and making that contact available. So ultimately, that's the reasoning for it. It was, I could have made 8 different presentation times available, but again, that's still asking people to come to me at a particular date and time. And the strategy here was knowing that there's so many conversations happening around housing all across the department. You all had a presentation here about inclusionary housing not too long ago. Those teams are having their own meetings about those particular ordinances and projects. And it's saying, hey, let's all get together and start to talk about this together when we go out to the community, because we're asking a lot of the community to be spending all their evenings with us, giving us this feedback. And so that's really the strategy. Now, to the extent that there might be a sector that would actually prefer more standalone meetings, I'd love to hear that too. You know, so ultimately, if it's, hey, go to us, but really, you know, we want to see still standalone meetings for specific projects that happen more often, please give us that feedback. All of this is really starting to, what I'm trying to do in my position, which is really new for the county and with others, is ask people how they want to be engaged. Ask what that participation, what they want that to look like, versus us determining what those tactics are going to be and then saying you have to fit within this strategy. So ultimately, if there's any feedback about how that's preferred, if you like it here, but you would actually prefer a standalone or something like that, please share that with me. I share that with others. We have projects that are engaging, you know, across all different departments, and we're trying to do our best. It's hard to kind of find that singular thing that might work for everybody. So what I'm really letting people know is we need to provide a range so that people have a choice as to how they participate. If you'd rather submit a survey or write an email from the comfort of your own home, great. If you want to go physically someplace to meet, great. If you want a virtual meeting or a presentation where you're already gathering, let's really look at that myriad of options so that we're not excluding anyone just because we've decided it's only going to be a community meeting support.
I think I was just so surprised that it's moved forward, because when your rep came out to the planning board, there was almost 200 residents that showed up to our planning board meeting, which never happens. And across the board, all of them do not build all of those houses out here. And I'm so surprised that feedback doesn't seem to have equated to, well, I hear what you're saying, but it's still going to get done. So that's the unfortunate part of somebody being from the rural East County. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating that voices were given and it doesn't feel like that changed a thing.
So I want to make sure that I get exactly from you when that meeting happened, and particularly which project you're talking about, because with this housing blueprint, this is brand new. So the draft was first presented to the board in December, and I'm the only one going out and giving presentations on it. So I want to make sure if there was feedback that didn't get trickled down to me from another department, that I get that.
Yeah.
Now, another thing that I do have to say specifically about those numbers, that 6,700 units in the unincorporated area, there is ultimately nothing that this county can do without, like, I don't even know if it's legal action, and I don't want to overstep or talk. That is state mandated. The state comes and says, you need to plan to build for this many. They say that to SANDAG, who's the regional planning agency, that the region of San Diego is responsible for a certain number of units. And then SANDAG does their calculations to then determine how much for each jurisdiction, including the unincorporated county. So that's why you're still going to see that number, because that's a state mandated number. Now, to the extent that the feedback in this is, okay, well, you have identified an objective is to meet this mandate, but you still have a concern about what that impact is going to be to your unincorporated rural community, and you're not seeing that concern reflected in any of the other objectives. You know, is it grow housing, but in consideration for the nature of our rural communities, in consideration, or to retain design or land use, you know,
to all
Right,
of
'cause
that.
one
One of your benchmarks is land preservation and and openness.
Correct, and
And-
so to the extent that you're not seeing it, that's what I'm out here to
Right.
ask. Here are how these have been written. That's why they're so lengthy and kind of, I have to read them word for word because I was directed by the board to get feedback on these particular goals and objectives. But the feedback I can give back is saying, hey, people are saying this is not representative of what they want to see in their community. They're saying that these things are missing. They're saying that they want the language here to change to say that while you're pursuing the development of affordable housing, we still need to preserve what our communities stand for, what our communities look like, and ultimately for us in this process to be able to then hand that to the board for their consideration as they're making this decision.
You know, what's interesting is that a lot of these areas, I live in Ramona, actually have rural preservation mandates that have been put in place by the county. And so you have this like-minded jurisdiction that's making a mandate. I've seen this with other municipalities, and then one municipality will actually file a lawsuit against the other, and then they work it out in court. But it seems to me, Carolyn, like the county is saying, despite the rural preservation planning districts, you know, they must have some place in mind. Maybe it's Yamul, I don't know, but I think the district attorney said there's 35 communities in unincorporated San Diego County. I find it hard to believe, especially without access to transportation, that they would do this in an area that is so remote, but.
So I just want to make sure you clarify that the bay here, in terms of the number, is Sandak.
Right.
The county
Not a
doesn't
fan of
choose the
Sandak.
number.
Yeah, it's just
The county doesn't
interesting.
say, hey, we'll take this
If
many.
you're a rural person, you're probably not a fan of
But if
those
the county
folks.
wanted to
Yeah.
dispute this and fight this,
They should.
they could.
And there may be some processes to that I'm just not privy to, because I'm not a
Right.
representative of planning and development services. I believe Camila and Mike were here, you know, last time, and in the inclusionary housing, they did want me to let you know that they did take your concerns along with the others for the community feedback that was presented on March 24th to the planning commission, and that's recorded as well, so you're able to view that recording. Their timeline also, like a lot of us, is in flux right now because of what's happening with the board in terms of when they're gonna be going back to the board. But again, I know kind of knowing to kind of plug into all of these different websites and finding out, oh, when are they going is, you know, can be challenging. But I know that you have an interest in the inclusionary housing. Todd knows to ping me or Camila on that to give you an update at the next meeting, and I'm more than happy to do that for Housing Blueprint as well.
More importantly, we want accessibility attached to it. So it isn't per se the inclusionary that's important, but it's also that suddenly it's no longer married to accessibility, and years ago it was.
Okay.
So there was never new housing ever built without the words inclusionary and accessible were always together.
Okay.
Or affordable, I should say, affordable and
And
accessible were together, and they're no longer. But I know Jeanette was trying to say something.
That was it.
The one other thing I have is that take into consideration that for affordable housing in the veteran space, if you are 100% total and permanent, you're getting close to $3,700 a month, right? That could be the veteran's only source of income, and it takes them out of affordable, because if you do the numbers, that's a lot of money, but that may be the only money that they have coming in. So a lot of the discrimination towards, I'm an advocate for the veteran space, right? So the discrimination that lies heavily in our space is that while the numbers look nice, who wouldn't want to get a $3,700 check? But the reality is that automatically excludes us from every single city and county program and service because we make too much money.
It's crazy.
Right, so my Vietnam veteran elderly father makes too much money because it's 100% TNP, and that it's mind blowing. I mean everything. I mean solar. I mean WIC, all of those programs and affordable housing completely knocked out.
That is below minimum wage.
So it
Below
doesn't,
minimum
That is
wage.
amazing, and how is that even
it doesn't
possible?
take you out of solar, because I make 54,000.
What takes us out of solar is that we're East County.
Okay, but I'm saying it's not the money.
Okay, so the solar programs for the city and the county exclude Santee, Lakeside, and a couple of other rural places. I should have added that on. So that isn't even a thing we get to have. But on the housing side of it, just put that in somewhere and do some work on that, because those younger veterans that are coming back from Afghanistan, who are 100% TNP, they're already out of the affordable housing range, because by the numbers, they make too much money. But they could also be an amputee, or, you know, a TBI like I have, or a COPD, or all of those other things, totally priced out of the market, because they, again, by the numbers, look like they make too much.
Okay, and Caroline, I apologize for the ignorance, TMP stands for?
Total and permanent. So the VA has X amount of levels of 100%. 100% is where, you know, you're earning well over 3,600 a month. So you have 100%, 100% total and permanent, and then 100% unemployable.
Okay.
But the numbers still of the monthly disability rating is the same. It doesn't really change anything.
Okay.
But just for filling things out for the younger veterans or even the older veterans, they're completely out of those abilities to get affordable housing because of those numbers.
Okay.
So I would add that I would like to see more general virtual meetings, for sure.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of people that I would put it out to, they're not attached to groups. So they're just neighbors, or they're people that I meet in doing advocacy. Some of them are in education advocacy, but it's connected to housing. So I think having different options, obviously, like a weekend, like at 10 o'clock in the morning, like having those options would make a difference, and you'd see whether you had people coming, but that to me, would at least give people the option if they're not at a meeting.
Okay. And the only other thing, do you have email blasts? Like, do you like if somebody subscribes, do you have that opportunity where it's like you're gonna auto send all your subscribers, hey, look, we need your input by this,
Yes.
It seems like.
So the county has a system called Gov Delivery,
Okay.
and
That's what Tad's been talking about.
Oh, Tad, yeah,
And
so-
he asked us to sign
He
up
sent
for
us
it.
this blueprint.
so if you go on SanDiegoCounty.gov, and I don't know if you could pull it up, on the bottom right-hand
Yeah.
corner.
He has emailed it several times.
I know he's
Yeah.
emailed this, but I just want to let you know that there is.
No, he emailed back.
Billing.
Oh, the sub.
I have a brain injury, so I'll forget about you in a couple of minutes. I
Okay,
totally
no
forget,
problem.
so I had to say that while I had it up on.
Sure. So Gov Delivery, bottom right-hand corner of the SanDiegoCounty.gov.
Okay.
You can click on there and you can actually see the full list of subscriptions that you can specifically click onto. So you can look at all the ones that there's a particular Gov Delivery interest for. And you can pick, yeah, so you might actually be like, oh, this is too many. And you can choose what's on there.
You keep doing stop.
Yeah, so if you see, right there, email updates.
There it is,
that
email
green.
updates.
This one.
Yes. And you're not gonna be able to see the list, but there, all you do is you put in your email address and you start your register, because it's gonna be specific to you. You get to see every single email subscription that's available at the county, anything
there's
that
like
you're
100.
interested in, and then you will start getting blasted.
Awesome.
And so housing is on there too, and then on our Engage San Diego County Housing page, you'll be able to also subscribe for updates for that. So I know it's always a lot of information. There's so much work going on, and it always feels like we're, drinking out of the fire hose, and who's working on what and what department's leading what, and it's just, can be really confusing. But we're trying our best here, and we really appreciate you guys sticking with us and
Keep that
giving
analogy.
us that feedback.
Thank you for coming to
Yes,
talk
thank
to
you.
us and get our input again.
And give your phone number, so Elaine is taking notes.
Okay.
Or Jaime is taking notes.
Okay.
So that we always have a phone number as in the minutes.
Yes, absolutely. I'll send it via chat.
Thank you. And then I will share the presentation with the group that you sent to me and to Todd, right? I think
I
we're-
sent it to you and to Todd, and I might make it a PDF. It's got my notes in there, so maybe, because, so that the
Do you
power.
want to make it the PDF first and send it to me and then I'll send it out?
Would that
to
be
the group?
easier for you, or do you want to make it a PDF?
I can do it.
You can do it. Okay, great. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sure.
Have a good
Thank you.
weekend.
Yes, forgive my memory as well, but what department are you from?
So I'm actually in county communications.
Okay.
So we have a county communications office, but I am a brand new role for the county as the community engagement manager. Every department, some departments might have multiple of people like me, but I'm currently the only one with like eyes on the whole thing. As much as everybody tells me, right? Because I only know as much as everybody's willing to share. So I'm trying to do that thing where I'm threading through. That's the housing blueprint. The reason I'm here is because a lot of people, this impacts Section 8 housing. It impacts when we build on county property. It impacts land use policy. It's not just one department. So for one department to hold it doesn't necessarily make sense. Great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks again.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks for taking heat from the East County.
Oh, no problem.
And accessibility in all housing.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank
Have a
you.
great afternoon.
Thank you.
All right, so obviously, the last one is easy, our next meeting, we will go to what was decided, the fourth Wednesday. We're gonna try it anyway, the fourth Wednesday of May at
The fourth Wednesday.
3:00.
The
What we had
Yeah,
decided.
the 24th.
24th,
Michelle, I will
Yes.
not be at that meeting,
I know.
but I would like to request an agenda item for the fourth Wednesday then in June,
Okay,
if possible.
what is it? Yes.
I thought that we received an email from the county staff about 6 months ago that was that they were approving some type of survey but they asked for race, gender, age, and income, but didn't ask for disability status. Do you guys remember that?
Yes.
Okay, well, I went online yesterday to apply for another board and commission, behavioral health. And wouldn't you know, that old form is on there and they're asking everybody for race, gender, age, and income, and the disability. So the whole point of us wanting the disability on there was so there are, dozens and dozens of boards and commissions. For us to be able to work with these other boards and commissions or identify who is self-identified as having a disability, and it's still not on the website. So I'd like to request an agenda item for the June meeting for us to make an official request to the county to get that updated.
So it's not specifically the county, so what department
Whoever's-
is that? I know
no,
that's what I'm getting
It's
at.
the county, it's the clerk's office. And didn't we have somebody from the clerk's office come
Yeah,
talk to
Harry-
us after this?
But that,
Maybe it's
obviously,
IT, I don't know who it is.
Well, the
but that's what I'm
yeah, is it-
asking Elaine. What is the department that created that form? Is it the clerk's department?
I'm not sure. We can check, but I don't know. I don't know what committee it is and I'm not familiar with.
It's
the
not a
format.
committee, for sure. It's a form that is for all 120 or 130 boards, commissions, and committees of the county. It's one form.
One form.
So
Okay.
it might be Andrew Potter.
I think it is Andrew Potter's.
So
He can.
again, I know he did, and clearly he didn't follow through.
Yeah, so we need to, I wanna put that on the agenda.
We'll put it on the agenda, and also I will request that Todd
They want
talk to
another
him,
though.
because that's,
So you would like it on the agenda and to have
Yes.
invite Andrew back or just to talk about it?
Whoever is
he should be here because he made a commitment that would happen. I'm gonna be very clear about this. This isn't like we wanna talk about it.
Okay.
That
Yeah,
was
we can
supposed to have been done.
check.
And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, I had asked Nora Vargas's staff to talk to him because she's the one who put out the board letter.
Okay. Yep, we can add it to the agenda and we can check with his schedule. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are generally board days. And I think, is the next meeting on a Wednesday
Well, I'm asking this
All
to be
meetings
placed
are
on
on
the
a
June.
Wednesday.
or on Wednesday? So Andrew most likely would, we can check with him, but most likely he may be busy in one of the board meetings because the Tuesdays and Wednesdays are board days. But we can check with him regardless. We'll add it
Yeah,
to
but
the agenda.
usually not until 5 o'clock, because I listen to those meetings.
Yeah, it depends on.
The land
the
use,
day.
I know, I understand. The
But we'll
land
ask
use
him.
one is typically over by 2. But Wednesdays is land use. But yes, the bottom line is that we fought this, we made them redo it and send something out directly to every single committee. And the whole purpose of that was that moving forward,
Mhm.
new people would be able to self-identify.
Okay. Okay, I think we have it noted.
Yeah, I think we actually asked, but we may not have pushed this, to include a definition of disabilities because very commonly, people will not think of invisible disabilities as putting them in that category.
Okay.
So that might be helpful, and Jessica's probably our expert on helping us provide that.
Yes, I definitely know the various definitions of disability.
Using.
And then maybe we can provide that to him to be incorporated in the application form, so they know it, just as an explanation, a clarifying explanation. Does that make sense? Does that?
That makes sense.
Is that something that needs like a second, sorry for my ignorance? Is that
No,
having an agenda item just?
I'm requesting an agenda item for June 28th. I would like, because I know once this is published, it will get attention.
Yeah.
So I am officially requesting that we place this on our agenda. And if staff wants to come and give us an update, that's great. But I want it on the agenda for public circulation at the June 28th meeting.
Because you're not gonna be there in May,
Because I'm not
Right,
there in
and you
May.
wanna, got it.
So this way we can, and
That way everybody in the county is gonna see that it wasn't done.
that's the point.
I got it.
The only thing I have is, I will not be here for June because I may be turning 50 and I'm heading to Europe, so,
Celebrate.
yes.
That is nice.
Nice.
It is part of the birthday graduation thing.
Good for you.
So that's
Good for you.
I know 2 people won't be here.
Yeah, I won't be
for-
here May
Also, that's why we do.
No, mine's June.
I know.
May is my birthday,
Right,
but July is my
Graduation.
graduation, so I picked it right in the middle.
Nice.
right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that Jeanette won't be here for May,
I
so
will
there
be
was another
commuting with
reason that will push it.
You'll be what?
I will be commuting with baby elephants.
Oh, Kenya?
South Africa.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm doing Croatia and Sicily.
Oh, nice. Going to White Rose, I thought.
That's so nice.
God, South Africa, that's on the list.
I'm just trying to get.
So,
the room.
all right, what else do we have? So that's our next meeting date, is
Yeah.
going to be May 24th, Wednesday, at 3 o'clock. We had decided 3 to 5, right?
If you guys need to bring a cake, you could do that.
Nice.
It's my son's birthday.
Am I correct about the time?
Yes,
We
it was
want
like
to do
3 to
later?
5.
Right.
Okay, 3 to 5. And then we
Chocolate.
already voted on the meeting minutes.
Yes.
We voted,
Yeah.
it is already 4:05, but we did have in progress topics that we have not yet gotten to.
We're
on the-
gonna.
Okay.
And then we had committee composition, which we skipped.
Yeah, we're gonna
Okay.
move those.
Okay.
And those are not critical time issues. So I think that's taking care of the things that we have to take care of. So, are there any other announcements? Nope, then we're free for the weekend.
No, we're.
We're turning for the